President Commissioner Barb Lewis. To my left is fellow Commissioner Jeff Benton. Don Houston is sitting in today as the administrator, and Sarah Donato. Almost called you Cindy again. Let's proceed.
Resolution number 18-783, in the matter of approving the electronic record of the proceeding from regular meeting held July 12, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 18-783. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
We have no public or elected comment this morning.
Okay, that brings us to a little background, a discussion about the alley between the two buildings, the courthouse and the Hayes building across the street here. I've done some research over the last few months, but it's extremely important that we all get brought up to speed and we all have the same information. So I've just asked that we have a conversation this morning, and some of the people that are involved are with us in the audience today. I'm going to ask that they comment as well. And I don't know a really good way to start other than Natalie. I think you're here, and why don't we start with you? And the reason does everybody understand the issue? The question is whether there is logic, safety issues involved that might require or might give a good idea to close it. And so you've got a team effort here.
Yes, Natalie Fravel, Delaware County Clerk of Courts. We've spoken about this since the beginning of the construction project, and really more so after the building was completed. Our safety concern for the alleyway or walkway or plaza, whatever you want to call it, between the 110 North Sandusky building, which is the new courthouse, and the Hayes building, which is located at 140 North Sandusky Street. There's sort of a paver patio brick area that seems to be more of a walkway type thing that has been open to traffic. And our concern about this is we have an address that is 110 North Sandusky Street. All of our residents in the county are summoned to court and required to come to court at the 110 North Sandusky address. They Google it, they park their cars out here, then they have to walk down around to the other side of the building when there's traffic going down that alley, sometimes pretty quickly and unsafely, and that was my concern. A lot of the people aren't familiar with the area. Sometimes they're coming here for the very first time, and it's unsafe there. And with our offices on that side of the building, we see this traffic daily, continually all day long, and it's just a concern. And I had spoken with Major Balzer about it probably last November or December, and just trying to see what his thoughts on it were, and I think he was concerned as well about the safety.
And I believe you're here on behalf of the sheriff who could not be here today.
That's correct, sir. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Jeff Balzer, Chief Deputy with the Sheriff's Office. My concern is twofold. Pedestrian, that's a concern, and also just having vehicles up that close to the building. The federal government guidelines, suggested guidelines, recommend a 50-foot setback from courthouses and other critical structures. That seldom happens just because of the way the buildings are located, but we do the best we can. Currently, between the buildings right now, from where the bollards are in place, those posts, from the bollards to the side of the courthouse, it's 30 feet. From the bollards to the side of the Hayes building, it's 15 feet. So that's fairly close. My concern is if someone had that intent to have a vehicle with explosives in it, they could do significant damage to the vehicle, to the buildings on both sides and the people inside. I spoke with Chief Donahue of the fire department this morning to get their input. My initial thought was about putting some type of removable bollards at the entrance that could be removed by emergency personnel. He had another suggestion, which is better, I think. He talked about curbing, possibly extend the curb across that because the emergency vehicles can go over top that. And maybe some signage too to indicate that it's no vehicular traffic. I think that kind of accomplish a couple goals.
And you don't have to remove it then if there's an emergency.
That's correct, because what happens, he reminded me that what happens is those bollards, if they're not checked regularly, then they get rusted and different things, and it makes it difficult for them to remove it. And that's part of the emergency plan, is to be able to access, to have the fire trucks in between the buildings and the ambulances. But if we had some type of curbing, and this would take some more discussion, and obviously John Melvin would be the one to talk to about this, but that would allow their vehicles still to have access, but yet keep the regular vehicular traffic away then.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when I spoke to you, you indicated you have observed situations where cars have come there too fast, thinking it's a street, and so
think it's a
they're going to
street.
a parking lot.
Yeah, and then they get, almost to the end and they realize that, oh, this is a parking lot and it's a sharp curve and there really is no sidewalk on that side and, our residents have to go down and either walk in the mulch or walk, in the roadway. So, it's just a safety concern.
Any questions for these two?
I don't know if anybody else wanted
Yeah,
to
we'll
speak.
could ask.
Okay. Yeah, I had some other questions too. Well, let me ask you, I know we've talked about changing the address of the old courthouse to Union Street, since that's really where the parking is and that's where the people need to enter. Is that possible? Would that, I think that would
It's
help.
very possible, and I think it's appropriate. I
Yeah.
think it's appropriate for both buildings to have a Union Street address, since our main entrances face Union Street. I would just need time. I was speaking with the judge this morning, and, we buy our envelopes by the tens of thousands, and so I would just need time to deplete that supply, but
Sure.
yes,
So it is
I think that's
doable.
logical. I think that's reasonable.
Seems to
do
make
that.
sense.
Well, and one of the other reasons I want to get this on the agenda for the conversation is there was a discussion about putting signage up to get people around. Well, obviously, we need to determine this issue before we start having signage to direct people. Otherwise, that would be a cost we'll have to replicate. Regarding the address change, Don was asked to look into that. You want to update us?
Yeah, sure. Commissioners, I talked with Jerry Warner with the city yesterday, and it's as simple as sending an email to him to request the change of the address, and then the city takes care of everything for us. What happens then is it takes about a 30-day period, I think, for everything to update. And then the post office would have the change of address on file for 2 years. So it's a pretty simple process where that's concerned.
I've heard conflicting reports. Is the alley legally vacated now?
According
Do we
to
know?
Tom Holman, I'm sorry, but I think about 4 or 5 months ago, I thought the city might have a concern about this. And I mentioned that to Tom and found out initially getting a response, and he came back about 3 or 4 days later, said it's already been vacated.
Okay.
And I believe, Eric, you have confirmed that as well, or you were? Okay, so it's,
John Melvin has something to add.
okay, yes, John.
John Mellon, Director of Facilities. I have received an email from Chief Pijanowski. They did have the resolution where they did vacate that alleyway, the part of rezoning for the construction of the new courthouse.
If we put the curb barrier up, could cars still drive down that?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah, a car, absolutely, you could put a curb there. Nothing, that would not prevent a car from jumping the curb and going down there with malintent, But it would make it, we could add a curb as, we've discussed this internally in our office. We could put a curb there, we could use some of the pavers and make it more of a pave, so it looks less like a driveway, looks more like a sidewalk. But that still wouldn't keep somebody with bad intentions from going down there.
Anything you wanted to add to that?
yeah.
Look, you had.
John's exactly right. You've got the fine line there, and ultimately, if we've got the fire officials recommending that we not install the bollards, which would be wonderful for security, but yet I don't want to cause any inconvenience or some way that the emergency vehicles wouldn't be able to get in there.
Liz, do you have any questions at this time?
Not right, no. I had some of Commissioner Benton's questions.
Who else would like to speak on this topic?
Schultz, Court Administrator for the General Division, for Judge Krieger and Judge Gormley. I think the address change would solve their concerns. I think their primary focus is making sure the public can get access to the building easily. You put it in your phone, you Google it, and it shows up right in front of there. And I've been out there when the public is confused about that and had to direct them down that alleyway. So if it's as easy as making that change from our perspective, that would be wonderful. I think that would solve any of their concerns.
Yeah, I can't explain why we're saying dusk other than historical, I suppose. But Don and I were talking about it this morning. Somebody gets up, let's say they're a jurist, they're coming up here, and I guess there's some directions you enter on the Union Street side, but they're going to Google it by putting the Sandusky address in.
Yeah.
And they get here, then they're confused. So and I think we have a lot of first-timers, especially with the jury, et cetera.
Yep. Yep.
So, thank you. Other comments?
Commissioners, Randy Fuller, Domestic Relations Judge. I don't have much to add other than I agree with what has been said already. My concern would be just timing. We don't have near the postage that the clerks has, but we would need sufficient time to order and get new stock in. Additionally, my concern is about the public being able to have access to the court and share Judge Krieger and Judge Gormley's thoughts of if we change the address, that certainly resolves my concern with it. And I do have some concern about safety. When I was talking to Natalie before this meeting, we were probably on the phone for less than 5 minutes, and she commented at 2 different occasions, that person's driving too fast down the alley. And with people parking in the courthouse and walking to the Hayes building, I think it does pose concern for their safety as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do apologize. I have a 10 o'clock I've got to get to.
Thank you.
Morning, Kyle Rohr, First Assistant Prosecutor on behalf of Carol O'Brien, County Prosecutor. We share the same concerns as the court and the clerk when it comes to the safety issues. Our folks park in the courthouse and walk back and forth. I walk back and forth half a dozen times a day. I don't think that road gets used a lot if that's relevant to the discussion, so I don't think it would be really cutting off a lot of traffic that uses that road. When it comes to changing the address, is the intent to do that for the Hayes building as well?
Yes, yes.
We would have just similar administrative kind of concerns of using up stationery and things like that, but I think no different than what everybody else has talked about, so, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dave Hemanowski, probate juvenile court judge. I am all in favor of changing the address of somebody else's building. No, I would agree actually wholeheartedly as to the new courthouse. Obviously, there is no entrance to that building off of Sandusky Street. There never was. There's just a fire door there that faces Sandusky. I think the vacation of the alleyway is an excellent idea. Actually, Monday of this week, I parked there Monday morning. I usually walk to work, but I happened to take the car Monday morning so I could get to Rotary. And walking from the garage to the Hayes building nearly got run over by somebody flying down that alleyway who did not, because the dumpster is there at the moment for the Hayes building, some renovations going on in the Hayes building, did not see that I was walking out.
Or somebody running late.
Yeah, so that is absolutely an issue. Frankly, the larger issue is I can't think of a time I have walked out of that building to come downtown, to come here, and not seen somebody wandering aimlessly on Sandusky Street trying to figure out how to get into the new courthouse from the Sandusky Street side because GPS has led them there. They've parked on the street somewhere and they can't figure out how to get into the building. Making that a pedestrian walkway and making it look like a pedestrian walkway will allow you to have appropriate signage so that even the pedestrian traffic coming will find it more easily. Monday of this week, I sent an email to my whole staff, which is a pretty big staff because our clerk's office is internal and probation is internal. It's about 55 people. And I was surprised at the mixed reactions I got in the conversation about changing the address of the Hayes building. There were some folks who were quite enthusiastic for the directions issue. You know, we have to tell people the parking is on Union Street. And our forms all do that. We notify people to come to court, we tell them the parking is on Union. The flip side of that is folks said, you know, this building's had that address for nearly 20 years. The building's been there 17 years now. It's on every website. It's in every GPS. It's on, you know, attorneys have it on their websites directing people. It's been on forms for years and years. And as I got into talking to programmatic folks, the CASA program, the Family Advocate program, the mentoring programs, they said every brochure we have, every training manual we have, everything we have says 140 North Sandusky Street on it, and that stuff's been printed for 2 decades. I can't speak, obviously, for the recorder's office and the auditor's office and the treasurer's office, but I would encourage you to speak to them before making that decision. We'll do whatever you tell us. I just want to make sure that you're aware that there is a larger issue, I think, with the Hayes Building, having been there as long as it has and having that established address, that we may actually be creating more confusion than we're solving. The flip side of that is, we may create even more confusion if we have one building with a Union Street address and one building with a Sandusky Street address. I suppose the answer to that is, the Hayes Building does have a Sandusky Street entrance. And I think that was the logic in 2001.
It's not open to the public, I don't believe, is it?
Right, but that was open to the public at the time, and was sort of the main entrance at the time. And that's why it had a Sandusky Street entrance. If we were to change the address of the Hayes Building, I would suggest at the earliest, perhaps maybe a January 1/19 date, to give us time to get things ordered, to begin to burn through letterhead and envelopes. And frankly, I will tell you, if we do it and we don't get through them, we're just going to keep using them. We can sticker over them, we can do other things. I'm not going to throw out thousands and thousands of envelopes. But I noticed there are a number of offices in that building who are not represented here today, and would just suggest checking with them what the impact on them is going to be, because those offices, auditor, treasurer, recorder, child support, JFS, have been in that building for 17 years with the Sandusky Street address. But as to the other two, I have no reservations
The
whatsoever.
safety issue, you see that as an issue,
Absolutely.
based on your own experience.
Yes. Well, and also, as has been mentioned by a number of folks today, the issue, the reason we didn't want parking on the street in front of the new courthouse on Sandusky Street, every time somebody from the city or somewhere else said to me, well, why do we have to take this parking space? I said 2 words: Oklahoma City. And allowing folks to come down that alleyway. And I have come out of the building and someone is parked in between the Hayes Building and the new courthouse, not realizing that they can't park there, or is there sitting idling in their vehicle, thinking that they're waiting for someone to come out because they just don't realize the flow. And because vehicles are allowed to be there, even though they're not supposed to be parked there, if I walk out of the building and somebody's sitting there in their car, I'd say, well, they're lost, or they don't know where they're supposed to be. You don't think anything of it. If you block that off, and as you asked of John Melvin earlier, well, couldn't somebody jump the curb? Well, sure they could, but if somebody jumped the curb and there's a car and a pedestrian walkway, we're all going to know immediately that vehicle is not supposed to be there, and somebody's going to take action on it right away. So even though you could still jump the curb and do something, it still significantly increases the safety and security of the buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to comment? Any questions you have? Anyone who has spoken, or just a general comment?
I just like to thank you, Commissioner Merrill, for putting the group together, and I know Dawn too, for consulting with some of the other offices who weren't here today. Your testimony here was very helpful, though, because I had often thought aesthetically, it certainly looks a lot better to close the area to traffic, and hearing the safety concerns, I really believe that it must be done. Safety is paramount. So I thank you for coming. I have one quick question for Chief Deputy Balzer. This is unrelated to the courthouse. When I was coming in this morning, I come over I-71, and I noticed there was so much traffic around there, even before I got to 71, and then I looked right, and traffic was all backed up on 71. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, there was an accident on
Was that this
71
morning?
South. Yeah.
That usually does it. All it takes is one accident right at that intersection, and it backs it up for quite a long time.
So the accident was south?
Yeah, I heard on the radio there was an accident on 71 southbound.
South, okay.
South of 36.
Okay, I
That-
see.
That affects the off-ramp, and
Okay.
that affects both directions, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Ben, do you have any comments?
No, I think it's a good idea. We need to do something, and it sounds like we've got some good common sense solutions and work out timing and the exact final solution.
My observation is consistent with what I've heard, but it was important that we all be on the same page, and that was the purpose, to get us all at the same level of information. I'm going to try to summarize what I think I've heard, so we can give some direction to facilities and to Don and our administrator. From what I've heard, and from what I've heard from my fellow commissioners, I don't think there's any debate about we need to close the street
Yes.
and do it aesthetically as possible, and I'm going to make a statement they can agree with. And the more park-like it looks, I think it's kind of our contribution to the city and to our employees, and I would see it being open to residents of the city as well, but obviously it's going to be used by the employees of those two buildings, and I think it's kind of adds to the campus feel for our area. That's my thoughts. I don't.
No, I agree.
So I would ask that we begin the process, get with Mike and begin the process of working out the logistics with our facilities about how we go about that and the curbing, et cetera. Issue number 2 then becomes the issue of address. And they are related but not related, but I think the comments heard regarding the courthouse, it is new. It really doesn't seem to be any question we ought to do that. Now, my personal opinion is, for lack of confusion, I'd do them both. But I do think, and I have spoken to a number of the people over there, but I don't want to speak for them. So I'm going to ask that you and Mike have a conversation with the treasurer, the auditor, and JFS. So I know we're in between right now as far as leadership there, but just kind of get a feeling. Is there a strong reason why we shouldn't change the address on both? Because that is where the parking is. And we do have the nice cover over there, so, but I don't want that to be my call, or, I think we at least need the input. Is there something we're overlooking?
I do think it's a good idea to change both addresses, but with Judge Hemanowski, what you were saying too, I think it makes sense, maybe January 1st of 19. So we've got a set date and gives you a little bit more time to adjust. But I think for doing away with the confusion, I would change, yes, both of them.
With that comment, because I didn't want to be presumptuous, with that comment, unless there is strong reasons that aren't apparent to us,
Sure.
I would suggest that we look at January 1 and that we change both addresses and make sure we do a good job through communicating to the public what we've done. And I think long-term, it will be well received.
Yes.
There'll be some transition confusion, but it's inevitable, and over time, that confusion will dissipate.
Just to know, we moved from 88 North Sandusky into the Hayes Building, I think in 2010, the end of 2010, so it's been almost 8 years now. And we still have people calling us, asking us where 88 North Sandusky Street is and why we're not there.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not kidding about it. I mean, that's seriously, we do, and we still find it online in places. One of the things that closing the alleyway, and I'm, again, 100% in support of that, but one of the things that closing the alleyway will do is right now, if your GPS leads you to 110 or 140 North Sandusky, you go down the alleyway and you park. So there will need to be very clear signage to folks about how they now get around the block.
That's the other thing.
Yes.
That's really what
Yes.
brought this to light, because
Right.
Jane had asked the commissioners to evaluate some signage, and my comment, wait a second, we got to figure out this alley, because if we do signage, then we have to change it. So it all is tied together.
10 years from now, people will still find a website somewhere that directs them to 110 or 140, and they'll end up on this side. I think of the signs the city put up, all around the city that say county buildings, very easily a sign here, and then at the corners, sort of directing folks around could solve that problem.
And Jane, whatever we work up on signage, I think Judge Hemanowski, because of his local knowledge, et cetera, his age,
His age.
Just got called old. Wait a minute.
make sure he's in the loop, okay, because I think that would be beneficial.
Well.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe even being compatible with city signage
Yes,
too. I
I-
think that's important, so, I know, oh,
Yeah,
great.
because I don't think the people
Thank you.
coming are going to make a distinction between city signage and our signage. That's an excellent point, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on that before we move on? I think it's been very helpful.
Yeah.
And thank everybody for taking the time to come here today to provide your input. So as January 1's our target date, and the only question is whether we change both, but there's a prejudice towards changing both. Okay, let's move on.
Resolution number 18-784, in the matter of approving purchase orders, then and now certificates and payments of warrants in batch number CMA PR 0718 and memo transfers in batch numbers MTA PR 0718.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 18-784. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-785, in the matter of approving travel expense requests.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 18-785. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-786, in the matter of changing the location and time for the Commissioners' session from Monday, September 17, 2018, to 10 a.m. at the Delaware County Fairgrounds staged by the Coliseum.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. I think we changed it last year, too. I think it's to accommodate their programming, if I recall. Vote?
Vote on motion 18-786. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-787, in the matter of canceling the Commissioners' session for Thursday, September 20th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 18-787. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-789, in the matter of changing the start time of the Thursday, August 9th, 2018 Commissioners' session to 2 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 18-789. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-790, in the matter of acknowledging receipt of annexation petition from the agent for the petitioner, Aaron L. Underhill, requesting annexation of 44.29 acres of land in Liberty Township to the city of Powell.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 18-790. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-791, in the matter of submitting to the electors a renewal tax levy in excess of the 10 mil limitation for Delaware County District Library renewal library operating levy.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. Did you want to say anything addition to what you already said passed, or?
No, I'm just here to answer any questions, acknowledge Sina Baker is trustee of the library, is also our chair of our
And
budget
you should
committee.
introduce yourself, I
Oh,
apologize.
I'm sorry, I'm George Needham, Director of the Delaware County District Library, excuse me. And also Julie Miller, who is the Facilities Administrative Support Manager for the library, and Karen Cowan, who is the President of the Friends of the Delaware County District Library. So, but happy to answer any questions that may be here.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. I've done a lot of work and thought and analysis on this levy, and wanted to just read a statement that summarizes my conclusions and observations. So if I'll go ahead and read that. As county commissioners, we are charged with the unusual duty to approve any public library ballot questions that are brought before us if they have been approved by the library's board. So while I'm duty-bound to vote yes on this question, I do feel compelled to note that if I were afforded the opportunity, I would not vote in support of this question. I'm a lifelong patron of the Delaware County District Library. I love this institution and the services it provides for all our residents. I also believe that our library system is very well managed. However, I would be remiss in my responsibilities to our residents if I didn't share the concerns I have about this particular ballot question. My concerns focus primarily on the assumptions that the library is using to make its financial projections and therefore determine its levy needs. I think many of these assumptions are extremely conservative, and if they were modified, the library's board and staff would see an opportunity to comfortably help reduce our residents' tax burden, the most common complaint I hear from our residents. Among these concerns are, one, the library had $17.4 million on hand at the end of 2017 and likely will have more than $19 million at the end of 2018. By the end of 2019, they will be able to pay off $6 million in debt. Even if we assumed they would not accrue any more cash on hand, that would still leave them with $11 million on hand, which is the equivalent of more than 2 years of operating expenses. Number two, according to the materials I've reviewed, they can pay off this existing $6 million debt without penalty on December 1st, 2019. Doing so would save them more than $200,000 per year in interest and approximately $575,000 per year in total debt service. However, their financial projections do not include this scenario. Number three, the projected investment yield that they are using in their analysis is extremely low. They project a return of about 0.6%. By way of comparison, the county is currently seeing a yield of 1.69%, which is rising on its investment portfolio. This difference would add roughly $200,000 per year to their projected revenues. Their projection for property tax revenues is also extremely low. They show their 2018 projected property tax revenues as being lower than their 2017 actual revenues. Number 5, they project that state library funding will remain essentially flat, but historically it has continued to grow. And it's very unlikely that the legislature will reduce funding. Number 6, they've run a surplus of 27% or higher in 2014 through 2016, their latest audited financial statement. Number 7, finally, their projections do not reflect that the Powell branch is an existing operation, so even if they were to build a new branch there, their projection should reflect the existing costs that would carry over to the new location, any proceeds that would result from the sale of the existing property. My conclusion is that the library should revise the assumptions used in its financial analysis, revise its financial analysis, and reduce the millage that they are seeking from Delaware County taxpayers. My analysis suggests that reducing the millage sought from 1 mil to 0.9 mils would only reduce the revenues by $500,000. Reducing it to 0.8 mils would reduce the revenues by about $1 million. Both would still result in ongoing surpluses, and with this $17 million on hand, the library could easily weather such a change in millage. Again, in conclusion, I want to reiterate that I love the library. I also appreciate and applaud the excellent stewardship of George Needham and Mary Jane Santos before him and the board and the fiscal management policies they have pursued that have allowed more than $17 million in available funds to accumulate. But I feel a slightly lower renewal millage is still conservative and fair to the taxpayers. End of my comments.
Did you want to have any comments?
Commissioner Benton and I have discussed this over the last couple of months as we've been preparing for this. Our board has adopted a very conservative policy. It has been the practice. As you noted, much of what we saved was intended to pay off the notes for the Orange Branch Library, and since that conservative stewardship has gone forward and we do have the reserve that we do, we will be able to move forward quickly with a new branch for the Powell Liberty Township area. We will review where we are with our bond counsel who helped us last time, so there may be opportunities for changing the investment policy to get a higher rate of return, which you pointed out. But I think overall, we're also considering, though, that taking a replacement levy of 0.8 mil or 0.9 mil would reset the clock, and in some cases would actually result in higher taxes for some people. So
I researched that issue, and a renewal at a lower level does not eliminate the rollback on the reduction.
it wouldn't be a replacement because it's a new.
No, renewal can be at a lower
Okay.
rate. It's only the increases where you lose the rollback.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but in order to do what we need to do in Powell, I think the board really thoroughly considered this and feels comfortable with the request that they're making. We also know that from some surveying that we did last year, people are, we had a very high percentage in the high 60s, low 70s% of people who were happy with what they were paying currently for the library, but didn't want to pay more, which is one of the reasons we didn't ask for an increase. There was no reason for us to ask for an increase, so we didn't. So that was the reasoning behind this. But I certainly appreciate your questions, and your comments will help us think sharper about the money as we go forward. Thank you.
Any other comments? Vote?
Vote on motion 18-791. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 18-792, in the matter of approving the invitation to bid and legal notice for the sale of real property owned by the Board of Commissioners of Delaware County, Ohio, for the old jail, 20 West Central Avenue, Delaware, Ohio, 43015.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
Good morning, John Melvin, Director of Facility. Based on input from the board, the invitation to bid and bid specification have been adjusted, revised, and ready to go back out to bid. The new bid opening date would be August 24th.
And it'll be up for bid, how long will it be open for bids?
Until August 20th, from
Oh, okay, I
your, I'm sorry.
I
Yeah.
misunderstood you when you said the date there. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a question. A number of the topics we've been talking about, the bullet points in terms of adding restrictions so that we protect the building going forward, I didn't see in this resolution. I don't know if Eric would care to comment.
The The resolution and agenda is simply the advertisement to bid. They are included in the actual bid packet with all the full specifications.
And by approving the resolution,
You're approving the specifications.
automatically
Okay,
includes
because
that.
that was my concern. I just want to make sure that we had the restrictions on, you can't demolish the building, and, you know, we've got to demonstrate a history of working on rehab facilities and a plan and economic benefit and all those things that we wanted to add, so. Okay, thank
I
you.
think the commissioners have made it clear that that building is an important part of the history of this area, and whatever the resolution is, building it, the direction it takes, that's important to us.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Vote?
Vote on motion 18-792. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-793, in the matter of accepting the sub-grant award for the Leap Forward Grant for the Sheriff's Office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
Hi, good morning. It's Kevin Savage from the Delaware County Sheriff's Office. Be more than happy to answer any questions about our sub-grant. As you know, this helps offset the cost to our budget by receiving this award annually. I know the OCJS carefully scrutinized our drug task force this past year. They think we're a model agency around the state, and they base that a lot on our collaboration with other agencies, state, federal partners. So really proud of the work that they've done, and proud to present the grant for approval.
What's been the history of this? I know we've received it a number of years now.
Yeah, we've received this grant ever since I became involved in the late 90s. So OCJS is one of the ones that, through the state partnerships, take a certain tax and award these grants to the various drug task force throughout the state. Its main purpose is to help supplement costs for confidential funds, training, overtime, reimbursement.
Good, good.
I'd just like to thank you for your
Yeah.
leadership.
Oh,
And you have a,
great team of people working up there.
well, got a tough job and you do it very well. Kathy.
Important job.
Yes, yes, extremely important.
Other questions or comments? Vote?
Vote on motion 18-793. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Resolution number 18-794, in the matter of approving an agreement between the Delaware County Commissioners and the City of Delaware for building official and building inspection services.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
Good morning. Fred Fowler with Code Compliance. This is an agreement we've had with the city for building official and backup inspections for several years, and it's typically on a 3-year rotation. And it's not been used much, but it is a practical relationship between the two departments for kind of a mutual aid agreement, and I recommend approval.
Questions or comments?
I just think it makes sense, you know, to share backup resources, and it sounds like it isn't used much, which is okay.
No, but it's there in case we need it.
Yeah,
so.
it's good to have the safety valve.
Good. Vote?
Vote on motion 18-794. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Thank you.
Resolution number 18-795, in the matter of authorizing the county administrator to complete and submit a class action opt-in notice form in Kane County, Utah versus United States.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
Eric Hostetler, Assistant Prosecuting Attorney. The U.S. Department of Interior administers a program by which it provides to state and local jurisdictions payments in lieu of taxation for federal lands that are within those jurisdictions. It's by no means a hold harmless payment. The local jurisdictions are not receiving full payment based on what those lands would bring in taxation, but it is a certain amount of money that's based on a formula for all of those federal lands. Kane County, Utah filed this suit against the United States federal government seeking compensation for underpayments of those payments in lieu of taxation. They did get it certified as a class action. Delaware County receives annual payments due to federal-owned lands in Delaware County, and the suit was seeking compensation for underpayments in 3 fiscal years, 2015, 2016, and 2017. Delaware County did receive payments in all 3 of those years and have a certain amount that's scheduled for them to receive as part of the settlement. In order to participate in the settlement, the county must complete and submit the opt-in form which this resolution will authorize the county administrator to do that. And I have the form available, and I will be working with him to get that submitted by the deadline.
Is it reasonable to assume that,
Great.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, how much federal land is there in Delaware? Do you know roughly?
I don't remember off the top of my head the
Okay.
acreage, but that, they do have a search function on their website. You can go on and see
Okay.
what the acreage is and what the payments have been in previous years.
Thank you.
Now, this is past 3 years. Going forward, will this adjust as well, these payments?
I'm not sure, I didn't dig into what the underpayment was and why that underpayment occurred. I don't know if it was a calculation error or what, but the indications in the documents we received is that it will not be a problem going forward, but it's certainly something that somebody will be keeping an eye on. As you can imagine, a lot of the counties out in the western United States have a lot of federal land. If they didn't receive these payments, they would not receive any taxation, basically.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
Vote?
Vote on motion 18-795. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Okay, unlike normally, we usually have to wait. We'll not have to wait. The hearing is scheduled for 10 o'clock. And with that, let's begin the process.
Resolution number 18-796. Public hearing for the consideration of the Kingston Township Watershed number 2017-2 drainage improvement petition filed by Dave Smith and others.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Lewis, seconded by Commissioner Benton. Discussion, vote?
Vote on motion 18-796. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 18-797, in the matter of approving for a specific occurrence a suspension of Rule 3 speaker registration, Rule 4 limitations, and Rule 7 public comment procedure from the rules governing public comment before the Board of County Commissioners of Delaware County, Ohio.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, vote?
Vote on motion 18-797. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill? Mr. Benton?
Aye.
With that, the hearing is now open. I will kind of give everybody some idea how this is going to proceed, and so we all have the same understanding. So, again, this is the first hearing for the consideration of the Kingston Township Watershed number 2017-2 drainage improvement petition. And there is a sign-in sheet going around, and I believe I saw you sign it over here, so I think it's probably already been around. We will hear a report from the county engineer and Soil and Water Conservation District. Questions will be an opportunity for questions from the board. Then we'll hear from all those who are in favor of the petition. We will then hear from all those who are opposed to the petition. And during testimony, you'll be asked to take an oath. And this will continue back and forth. If new information comes up or additional people wish to speak, they will be given that opportunity. Again, we'll have questions from the board. And then after listening to the testimony and the report of the engineer, the board will decide whether to grant the prayer of the petition or dismiss the petition. The board considers the following in making that decision: whether the board hereby finds that the proposed improvement is necessary, that it will be conducive to the public welfare. The board also finds that it is reasonably certain that the cost of the proposed improvements will be less than the benefits that are going to be derived from the process. If the board grants the prayer petition, the Delaware County Engineer will proceed with preparation of plans, reports, and individual schedules of assessments for the project. When those plans are complete, a final hearing will be set, notification of the hearing will be given to the landowners, and the board will consider the project at a date following that. With that, I'm going to open it up, and I'll let you introduce yourself and give the report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brett Bacon, Delaware Soil and Water Conservation District. By law, I will read the first hearing report into the record. First hearing report, Kingston Township number 2017-2 watershed drainage petition per ORC 6131, July 19th, 2018. This report has been prepared for the preliminary hearing on a drainage improvement petition filed by Dave Smith and others on January 26, 2018. The petition has been signed by representatives of 8 of the 26 parcels in the watershed. The general location and course of the requested improvements is quoted from the petition as follows. in Delaware County, Kingston Township, within the Kingston Township number 2017-2 watershed, and generally following but not limited to the course and termination of the existing improvements. The following is the nature of the work petitioned as quoted from the petition. To generally improve the drainage, both surface and subsurface, to a good and sufficient outlet by replacing, repairing, and/or altering the existing improvements and/or creating new surface and subsurface drainage ditches, mains, or laterals as requested by this petition. The drainage currently jumps watershed. The petition was amended based on a request by Joan Adkins filed on July 3rd, 2018, and accepted by the Commissioners on July 12th, 2018, to, quote, provide our/my parcels with a good and sufficient outlet for both surface and subsurface drainage. Petition process. This petition has been submitted according to Section 6131 of the Ohio Revised Code, ORC, which authorizes the Board of Commissioners to act on behalf of benefited property owners to make drainage improvements. If the Board of Commissioners decides to proceed with a project, the costs related to the improvements and the development of plans, reports, and schedules are assessed to the landowners in the watershed according to the benefit received to their watershed acreage. These special assessments will be added to the property taxes for each property and can be spread over a maximum of an 8-year period. Property owners may also choose to pay their assessment in a lump sum payment prior to placement on their property taxes. Additionally, the improvements will be placed on the Delaware County Drainage Maintenance Program in perpetuity per ORC Section 6137, and the annual maintenance assessment will appear on property tax statements as a special assessment in the same manner as the construction assessments. These annual maintenance assessments are generally in the range of 2 to 3% of the construction assessment. It should be noted that property owners are only assessed for those improvements that are located downstream from their properties. No property is assessed for improvements located upstream. The public agencies that own rights-of-way for public roads and other public lands are also assessed for both construction and maintenance costs in the same manner as private property owners. The decision to approve a petition project is a 3-step process. First, a viewing of the proposed improvement is conducted for the Commissioners to familiarize themselves with the watershed and general conditions. The Commissioners conducted the viewing for this project on April 23rd, 2018. Next, a preliminary hearing is held to consider the initial feasibility of the proposal. It is this preliminary first hearing that is before us today. If this petition is approved, a final hearing will be conducted to further consider this petition. At that time, final details such as engineering plans and specifications, cost estimates, and a proposed schedule of assessment will be known. Existing conditions. The Delaware Soil and Water Conservation District and Delaware County Engineers Office have made the following observations of the watershed using on-site evaluation and a review of available aerial photography, topographic mapping, and soils mapping. The Kingston number 27-2 watershed is approximately 66 acres. The predominant land use within the watershed is rural residential, comprising 71% of the acreage. The remaining portion of the watershed is agricultural, 28%, and road right-of-way, 1%. The drainage system does not appear to be functioning at or near optimum capacity due to a lack of comprehensive maintenance and the generally deteriorated condition of the infrastructure. There is currently no road culvert which would allow surface drainage to pass through Todd Street Road. Water collects on the north side of the road and either outlets into the existing subsurface drain or it flows into the adjacent Riboff number 620 watershed through the road ditch. The subsurface drain system appears to have significant blockages as observed by stagnant water in an inspection port on the north side of Todd Street Road. There is a shallow drainage ditch along the common access drive for the Il Trovatore subdivision on the south side of Todd Street Road, but it does not appear to have the depth and capacity to serve as an outlet for a new road culvert. These conditions are indicators of an aged, overburdened, and unmaintained drainage infrastructure. While the existing drainage system still provides some degree of drainage benefit, it does not appear to function as a good and sufficient outlet. Estimate of cost, factors favorable, unfavorable, benefit versus cost. ORC 6131 requires the county engineer to state in a report factors favorable and unfavorable to a proposed project, estimate the cost of the project, and state an opinion as to whether the benefits of the project exceed the cost. The following information is presented for your consideration. Construction estimate. The proposed project would include the following basic elements: open channel restoration, surface drain shaping and grading, seeding and mulching of disturbed areas, subsurface drain installation, installation of a grade stabilization structure, private drive culvert installations, and clearing and snagging. Construction, $51,600. Drainage maintenance, ORC 6137, first year startup, 5% of the construction estimate, $2,580. Project administration, survey, and engineering, 15% of the construction estimate, $7,740. Total project estimate, $61,920. Notes: it is important to understand that the above estimates are preliminary and made in the absence of a current detailed topographic survey of the project area. Should the project fail to be approved at the final hearing, the benefiting landowners, as defined by ORC 6131, may still be responsible for the cost of project administration, survey, and engineering design. The above estimate does not include the estimated cost for installation of a road culvert in the Todd Street Road right-of-way. This cost is estimated at $10,000 and would be direct assessed to Kingston Township. Assessments. If the project moves forward to the second hearing, the Ohio Revised Code instructs the county engineer to calculate the assessments to individual property owners based on the benefits received from the improvements for the various properties in the watershed. ORC 6131 states that, quote, uplands that have been removed from their natural state by deforestation, cultivation, artificial drainage, urban development, or other man-made causes shall be considered as benefited by an improvement required to dispose of the accelerated flow of water from the uplands. Benefits are further defined by the ORC as, quote, elimination or reduction of damage from flood, removal of water conditions that jeopardize public health, safety, or welfare, and increased value of land resulting from the improvement. Individual parcel assessments are not calculated for the preliminary hearing and are only calculated if the petition moves forward to a second or final hearing. Factors favorable, unfavorable. Factors favorable to the improvement. 1, improved surface and subsurface drainage in the watershed. 2, improved outlet for subsurface drainage components of household sewage treatment systems and for residential drainage systems. 3, reduction of future deterioration of surface and subsurface drainage infrastructure. 4, annual inspections and maintenance of the improvement in perpetuity. Factors unfavorable to the improvement. 1, temporary land use disruption during construction. 2, cost of construction and maintenance may be a burden to some landowners. 3, removal of existing trees and brush in the improvement area. Benefits versus cost. Assessments for property within the watershed are calculated based on the benefits derived. A publication by the Ohio State University Extension titled Returns to Farm Drainage details several studies conducted by Ohio State researchers on the effects of drainage on crop yields. The studies show that fields with good drainage will produce higher yields than fields that have poor drainage. A recently completed 25-year study showed that subsurface drainage increased corn yields by 24% to 39% and increased soybean yields by 13% to 46%. The same study also analyzed the return on investment for installing subsurface drainage in a field. It found that for corn, $4 is returned for every $1 invested, and for soybeans, $3 is returned for every $1 invested. To state it generally, the benefits of drainage will equal the increased yield multiplied by the market price. The increased value or benefit for residential properties is much more subjective and difficult to quantify. For residential properties, the lack of an adequate drainage outlet can negatively impact the condition of household sewage treatment systems, potentially limiting the value of the home for resale. Should the existing system fail, the cost to perform repairs or construct an alternate sewage treatment system can range from the thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. It would be reasonable to consider the cost of environmental degradation due to residential sewage treatment systems that may not be functioning properly. Other benefits that are commonly perceived as a result of drainage improvements focus on quality of life and positive neighborhood perception. Communities that have planned and maintained stormwater drainage infrastructure generally have higher resale values than those communities that are known to have a history of drainage problems or flooding. Conclusions. Based on all of the information gathered and generated for this project, I believe this project is technically feasible and would adequately serve the project area's drainage needs. However, the testimony brought to the board by the landowners as to whether the benefits of this project exceed the cost should be given significant consideration in the decision to move forward with this project. Should the current petition be approved to proceed to a final hearing, the petition bond will be returned and detailed plans, specifications, estimated costs, and a schedule of assessments would be prepared. Additionally, a benefit versus cost analysis will also be performed to further determine the feasibility of advancing this proposed project.
Are there any questions from the board at this time?
No.
Then we come to hearing from those who are in favor of the petition, And I will ask you to come to the podium, and I will need to swear you in. So is there someone here who would like to speak in favor of the petition? Come forward, introduce yourself, and I'll swear you in. And I'm also going to ask you to identify your location, which helps when we hear your comments.
Dave Smith, lot number 2 there, on the north side of Todd Street Road.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Proceed.
Basically, the water on the north side of the Todd Street Road there, it comes down through the fields from the east side there, which lot 1 and up 26 and 21, comes down through number 2, our lot number 2 there, and there's only one subsurface outlet, and that's to the, on the, that'd be the west side of my driveway. It's just like a grate, and it's about 75% blocked. That's the only drainage. There's no surface drain at all, on our side of the road. Everything jumps to, across our, the common drive to the west of us and goes to a drainage just on the other side, on the east side of 14 there, right where that 19 symbol is. And it goes to a subsurface drain. So basic, and that's on another watershed, or that's going down to the other watershed. And even on normal rains, it's, it floods our yard and whatnot, which, isn't a big deal. But it does back up in that subsurface drain that we have. I got some pictures here. I don't know if I can give those to you guys.
Yeah, we'll need to keep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking, that's the subsurface drain right here.
So you can be heard, you'll need to go back there.
I'll give you that.
Okay.
The subsurface drain on the west side of my driveway, it actually doesn't catch any water until there's like a foot of water in my yard. It won't flow into that, but it'll fill up on a normal rain. It'll backfill. It'll come from the south and actually go against drainage, against gravity, and come up and fill that ditch up to whatever the water level is, pushing. And it won't drain out until the outlet is cleared. So basically, the water jumps our watershed on the north side. I would say 99.9% of it. The subsurface drain's blocked there. I do have my perimeter drain on my septic system does run into that, and several field tiles run down to the outlet at the road also, and it runs to the south there somewhere.
Is your driveway passable? When, in some of these pictures, it looks like your driveway is underwater.
It's completely underwater.
But can you drive through it, or is it?
Well, yeah, with a truck or something. I mean, it gets over a foot of water in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll actually get almost to the point where it crests the road. I mean, it's been really close sometimes, but it just pushes, keeps pushing to the west. And, I've lived there almost 20 years. We've, always dealt with it. I probably should have addressed this problem back then, but we just put up with it. It washes out my driveway every year. I've got to, make improvements to my driveway, which, and I think it has brought, debris and dirt and silt. It's starting to affect, starting to build up down there towards the road. It's just it's a lot higher than it was, years ago. So, and that's all I got.
I guess just a question here, is
Yeah.
this, am I looking like you're taking the picture from your house?
From my house to the south. That's to the south.
Okay,
And, it's flowing from the east to the west. And that's probably, that rain right there, I think, was a couple inches, within a day or so. When it's in the wintertime, when it's saturated, or fall or spring, when it's already saturated, it'll drain off in a couple days. But, I mean, I've had to break drain tiles because it's wanting to push that water actually to the north into, you know, our basements, and I took all my downspouts, I just ran on the ground because before it would run up and be a water drinking fountain right there on the, coming into my house. It would push water into my house, so I did away with all that our first year. And
What about septic?
well, I have a perimeter drain that runs out to that outlet right at the end of my driveway, and I'm assuming it's getting pressurized also. And that's a concern of mine, but,
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't had any
Okay.
problems
Okay,
from it, but it's always in the back of my mind.
sure. Thank you.
And I would say, you know, my yard and my neighbor to the west of us, the number 14, are probably most impacted by the water, you know, when we get the good rains. It's, you know, surface water just sitting there. But, I mean, to the south, you know, they have a little bit of water and stuff, but there's a common drive right across from mine there. It does, I mean, I would say water would flow down there, but it's, you know, got 10-foot cattails and trees. I mean, none of the drainage on the south side of the road has been kept up or mowed or sprayed, so a lot of that's clogged. But none of our water from the north side of the road gets to the south side on the surface anyways. So, to the outlet, down there by 25.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yep.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of the petition? Member, you want to speak in, okay.
I'm sorry, I had a correction. I am 14, thanks Kathy. I'm not 2, that's John Burke.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
Well, she was nice enough to correct you quietly rather than...
quietly, yes, yes.
Anyone else who wants to speak in favor of the petition? Okay, with that, is there anyone here who is here to speak in opposition of the petition? Okay. With that, open it up for questions.
Well,
We had that
the
one
email.
statement.
I apologize. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. We have a letter which I will not read, but will be submitted to document for this hearing. And I hope I pronounced the name correctly, Mr. Kenneth Kubler, K-U-E-B-L-E-R. And I do not see his address on here, but he's obviously one of the residents. You're going to show me which one, or tell me.
I believe he'd be parcel number 25, would be caught by the watershed at the south side of Todd Street Road, and then also the outlet.
So you have the original that you will, okay? Thanks for the correction. I did overlook that. Again, if there is no one here to speak in opposition, I'm going to open up for questions from the board. Do we have anyone questions or comments?
Did you want to read his email?
I
don't know.
Eric, I'm not required to read his copy from the email we received this morning, am I? Okay.
Okay. And then we all received it. And
I'm sorry? If you want, yeah, sure, I'll read it if it's requested. Just
probably better.
I'll read my copy, just to go to your copy, right? Okay, this was received this morning at 8:41. Again, Kenneth Kubler, K-U-E-B-L-E-R. Although I was made aware of a hearing today regarding proposed drainage improvements to my neighborhood, I am unable to attend the meeting due to a conflicting work obligation. I wish to submit my objection to any plan which diverts additional water from the north side properties of Todd Street Road to the south side properties of Todd Street Road. Further, I object to any plan that assesses drainage improvements costs to my property. I do not have a drainage problem demanding any solutions, and I do not need to request any such improvement. Although the West Branch Creek and the drainage ditch behind my home does occasionally top its banks, it does not do so to such an extent as to negatively affect my property. Additional water diverted from the north side of Todd Street Road to the south side of Todd Street Road, however, may add additional load to said creek and ditch. If that happens, the additional water may change a minor occasional inconvenience into a greater problem for me. In other words, I worry that any drainage changes that add water to our side of the street will make my situation worse. Because of that possibility, and because I am not negatively affected by the current situation, I object to any changes which could potentially make my situation worse. Additionally, I object to any changes that impose a financial cost on me or an assessment upon my property. I am happy to discuss further via venues or means other than meetings held during my workday. Please ensure that this message is forwarded to any and all appropriate personnel. And again, that was received this morning at 8:41.
I guess I'd like to hear Brett's response to that, to his concern.
Again, Brett Bacon, Delaware Soil and Water. Which points would you like me to address?
The
All of
fact
them, or?
that it won't, he doesn't have a problem, and that it could even be made worse by, if we go ahead with this project?
Well, I guess I'll start with his point about diverting water. The water is not being diverted from the north side of the road to the south side of the road. It's actually being diverted out of the, we'll say, the flow path that Mother Nature intended it to follow by the lack of the road culvert and the road right-of-way. The road is essentially acting as a dam that's preventing the water from flowing its natural path. So I guess I would disagree with that point that we're proposing diverting water. You know, I say often drainage and drainage problems are a matter of tolerance, and you know, what one person perceives as a problem may not be a problem to somebody else. That's where we really encourage the testimony of the landowners in hearings and for projects such as this. Mr. Keebler may not have a problem that he perceives, you know, his drainage may be fine, it may be functional for the intended land use of his property. That's where we fall back to the engineering specifications and the specifications that we rely on from the Natural Resources Conservation Service and the Department of Transportation would clearly indicate that the drainage system does not meet those specifications as it sits right now. Doesn't have the capacity, doesn't have the depth. Certainly it still provides some degree of drainage benefit, as we state in the report, but it would not meet our current engineering standards.
Did you want to comment? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think just more pointedly maybe,
More pardon?
More pointedly, would this project as proposed increase the water flow through Mr. Keebler's?
I do not believe so. The watershed that we're working in is 66 acres. The amount of water, while it's certainly, you know, is causing issues for the folks north of Todd Street Road, the amount of water when compared to the water that flows down the Little Walnut Creek, which is, I don't have the numbers of what the watershed would be at that discharge point, but we're talking thousands of acres of drainage and a channel capacity that would be well in excess of the drainage that's coming down within this particular subwatershed. To use an analogy, it would be like putting a teaspoon of water in a bathtub. It's just not going to contribute a significant enough water to cause a difference in the surface water profile of that channel.
And that lot?
And that lot.
More specifically?
Of the creek, yes. No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
One of the things that sometimes gets misunderstood, he makes a comment, Mr. Keebler, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, makes a comment that he doesn't have a problem. You want to comment about the water is on your property becomes a problem for somebody else, it is a problem?
Sure. The revised code, especially this section of the revised code and the precedent of the Ohio drainage laws, would look at drainage. Everybody has a responsibility in the cost and upkeep of the drainage. As water leaves your property, yes, it may get off your property just fine. It may pass through your property just fine, but as an upstream landowner, you have a responsibility to the downstream landowners to maintain the flow of that water. Certainly, your water is entering somebody else's property. you would have a financial stake in that. And as a downstream landowner, you have the responsibility to pass that water through in a manner which does not cause damages to the upstream lands. And the state would, it is very clear that if water exits your property, you have a financial stake according to this process. That's where they define benefits.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would direct the clerk to read the motion to close.
Resolution number 18-798, in the matter of closing the public hearing for the consideration of the Kingston Township Watershed number 2017-2 drainage improvement petition filed by Dave Smith and others.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion vote.
Vote on motion 18-798. Mr. Bitton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Okay. Would one of the commissioners like to direct the clerk to reading one of the petitions or the resolutions?
All right. If you would read the granting of the prayer of the petition, please.
Resolution number 18-799, in the matter of granting the prayer of the petition and directing the Delaware County Engineer to proceed with preparation of plans, reports, and schedules for the Kingston Township Watershed number 2017-2 drainage improvement petition filed by Dave Smith and others.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. I will comment. Basically, our responsibility is to make sure that we follow the criteria set by the state, and the board is asked to consider 3 areas: whether the board finds that the proposed improvement is necessary, that it will be conducive to the public welfare, and that the cost, reasonable certain that the cost does not exceed the benefits of the project. I believe that's been shown today, and I would certainly support the petition. Any other comments?
No, I think it's a good idea to do the detailed plans and study the cost allocations. And I think it's a worthwhile petition at this point. So I would support granting the petition to move to a second hearing.
I do too. The water that we've just seen in the photos too. I mean, that's really a safety issue also. So.
Okay. With that, call for vote.
Vote on motion 18-799. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Bitton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
With that, we'll move on to, I believe, the administrator reports.
I don't have anything to report.
Mr. Farmer walked in. Do you have anything from the back of the room, or? Okay. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Benton.
Just a couple things. We had MORPC last Thursday afternoon. It went well. MORPC is an important part of our region and transportation in particular. They continue to work on a number of initiatives. I think they are very supportive of the interchange, the second interchange at 71 and 3637, which is very important for the county. So it's one of their top priorities to move forward, so we appreciate that. And the rest of it's really pretty routine stuff that we had the meeting there. Went to the BST&G chief swearing in, Chris Kovach. I want to welcome him to our community. He is the new chief of the BST&G Fire District, and it was a good swearing-in ceremony. And again, welcome Chris to our to Delaware County. Going to an open house this afternoon at Hilborn Insurance. Jack Hilborn's business has been in place for 80 years, which is phenomenal. Very outstanding record and a great citizen, and a really nice business for Delaware City and the county. So I'll be stopping by there, congratulating Jack on 80, well, not Jack personally, but his family.
Yeah.
And then I went to the Veterans Breakfast. Donna Evans over in Sunbury put together yesterday morning. That was very well attended. There were probably 50 to 60 people there. There were 10 World War II vets.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Really, yeah, because there are at least 90. It's great that they were able to participate. And it was a nice event and very well done. And lastly, I just want to mention that the British Open has started. And I'm sure everybody knows that already. I probably don't need to mention that, but it is in process, and they're 5 hours ahead, so it's probably already or almost over the first round, but there's still time to record the second, third, and fourth rounds. So that's all I got.
Commissioner Lewis.
Both Commissioner Merrill and I attended the national meeting, national conference of the National Association of Counties. And one of the announcements there is, or was, that our Stepping Up program here, which is headed by Cassie Neff from the Sheriff's Office, was selected to help develop an assessment tool in Washington, D.C. to be used by all the Stepping Up counties nationally. And so congratulations to Cassie and the work she's doing in the area, and also our partners in Stepping Up here in Delaware County. It's quite an honor. And I'll let you talk about all the, oh gosh, there were tons of workshops and seminars.
It was. I thought in fact, you may want to look at this as the program. I thought it was well done. Sometimes conventions kind of, yeah, so this one was well done, a lot of good programming. I think came back with some ideas and suggestions that will be in future weeks to have some conversation on. And the vote for the second vice president was interesting. I'm not going to go in a lot of detail, but there were 4 candidates: Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Kentucky. And ultimately, in a very, very close vote, it took 1,290 votes to win. On the third ballot, 1,296 votes produced the winner, which was Judge Moore from our adjacent county in Kentucky. It was very, very, very qualified candidates, and it was interesting to see that play out. Attended a host of meetings, as Commissioner Lewis did. I attended one on immigration. I'm on the steering committee for environmental issues, et cetera. But I attended one regarding immigration because we have a large, we think of immigration, we think of the southern border, but immigration in our county largely is the Indian community, who has a high visibility in our county. They're very productive and very good citizens, and that's also an issue that I've been made aware of from them over the last few months. So that's a committee that I'm going to get involved in, because I think I can at least make go through this committee aware of some of the issues people face beyond just the southern border, regardless of how you view that issue. Friday, the CCAO has meet the 2 gubernatorial candidates, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. So I don't know whether you two have an interest in coming down and observing that or not, but I'll throw that out there for whatever it's worth, or is it worth. And yesterday morning, I missed the regional executive committee because I had a meeting with Senator Portman's representative for the area and Chris Bosserman to get them together so Chris could help acquaint Mr. Knox and ultimately Senator Portman about issues like our interchange on 71 and specifically Big Walnut. Thought it was a productive meeting. I think he found it very insightful, and it's good that Senator Portman has reached out through his representative to find out as much as he can about our county, which we have a lot of issues in our county, and it's always good to hear that there is an interest with our elected officials. And with that, I have nothing else. I do believe we have need for executive.
Resolution number 18-800, in the matter of adjourning into an executive session for consideration of employment, discipline, compensation of a public employee or public official, or collective bargaining.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Vote.
Vote on motion 18-800. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Bitton?
Aye.
With that, we're now in executive session.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Pass it on and
Resolution number 18-801, in the matter of adjourning out of executive session.
So moved.
Second. Discussion vote.
Vote on motion 18-801. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Murrow is absent. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
And anything else we need to discuss today? Then we are adjourned.
There we go.
All right, we're done.
Whoopsie sewer.